That is why the infallibility factor, which is central and pivotal in Islam, should be maintained at all costs. You go to the Judeo-Christian books and see how prophets made mockery of their own selves. And it's accepted. It's funny how we are pointed fingers at when our prophet married more than one wife. I said, you forgot Ibrahim alayhi salam also had more than one wife. And he's the patriarch of the Abrahamic faiths. They say, yeah, that's true. He had Sarah and Hajra. True. I said, well, how do you answer to polygamy there? After all, he's the patriarch of your religion too. You know what they do to save monogamy? They make Ibrahim, astaghfirullah, commit fornication. Astaghfirullah. Can you imagine? He says, no, he was a mistake. Oh, and God says, take your firstborn and sacrifice him. Ismail, firstborn. If it's even in the Old Testament, Allah commands Ibrahim and says, take your firstborn and take him to the sacrifice and sacrifice him. They said, yeah, Ismail was the firstborn, but he lost his right. Huh? That's a nice one. Really, how did he lose it? Oh, he stole some food. I said, I'd like you, if you had 5 children and your child stole the food, you'd call him number 0 or number 1? If your child steals a little food, supposedly stole some food, you throw him out the window? And I said, what was the legitimacy of that child? Can you imagine we hear that it was an illegitimate birth? Just to make Ishaq the recipient of that sacrifice, all types of hodgepodge slaughterings takes place. Why? Because the crucifixion of Isa alayhi salam, according to Christian ideology, depends on the original covenant of Ibrahim with Ishaq, according to the Christians. See, for us, we share the similar principles with our Christian brethren, that the sacrifice was important, and the pivot of the Christian faith revolves around the crucifixion of Christ. For Paul says in Corinthians, he says, were Christ not crucified and risen 3 days later? Christianity is in vain. It is meaningless. Well, if the entire crucifixion of Christ depends upon, the Christian faith depends upon the crucifixion of Christ, and the validity of the crucifixion of Christ depends upon the sacrifice of Ibrahim with Ishaq, then I contend with you that we Shia lovers of Ahlul Bayt fill this void which you have forgotten, that the sacrifice of Karbala, when Allah says وَفَدَيْنَاهُ بِذِبْحٍ عَظِيمٍ, is really what you are supposed to be aiming for it means that when Ismail was sacrificed and when Allah replaced him with a lamb, Allah says وَفَدَيْنَاهُ بِذِبْحٍ عَظِيمٍ, meaning Allah is completing such a supreme sacrifice that even our Christian brothers in principle understand that when the Shia hold on to this belief, it is supreme. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Many arguments as such. I'm trying to explain to you the importance of obedience to the messenger. I conclude in this subject. You and I are always subject to somebody leading us. The world, in the human race, even in the animal kingdom generally, is built around somebody leading somebody else. It's a system. Children follow their adults, or they follow their peers. These young boys, they look at their friends. If their friends do something, they want to do it. It's fad. This is how Hollywood controls. They look for smart children. They start to promote something, then every child wants to go into the store to buy it. And once it picks momentum, everybody wants it. It's what we call joining the bandwagon. We are subject to that. We cannot avoid it. Either you lead or you follow. But you can never be either or. Meaning you can never be neither. Not either or, neither. Either you're leading or you're following. So I realize that in myself. Sometimes I lead, some people follow me, and many a times I follow. So Allah is showing me, if you don't follow your messenger, you will follow somebody. For sure, it's either your own desires, somebody, and by the way, your own desires generally always get subject to somebody outside who will affect you. You'll see somebody beautiful, you'll see somebody smarter than you, you'll see somebody stronger than you, and you will want to be like that person. It's human nature. Keeping up with the Joneses is a classic problem in the world. When your neighbor has a Mercedes 500, you want Mercedes 501. You've got to beat the system. Why? Because you want to follow. He got something, you want to follow him, but you want to go ahead of him. Human nature is such. So Allah is saying, if you don't follow the Prophet, you will follow somebody. The problem you have is if you belittle your standards to something which is not absolutely perfect in the relative world, you have shortchanged yourself. So today, when Allah said, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ in the Quran for us, He's telling us, you will follow somebody. I'm advising you that the best one you should follow is your messenger. If you have reflected about who your value and what your values are. And my value system comes from Tawheed, لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُ اللَّهِ. Because I have looked around and I've seen nothing but incredible beauty and gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore I've realized there is no better result since I came from Him. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. I will go back to Him whether I like it or not. That's the reality, brothers and sisters. Yesterday I mentioned with regards to hijab. This is obedience to the Prophet now. We're going to be practical. We don't want to be philosophical and just, make everybody say subhanallah, wa wa wa, mashallah, salawat, 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 when we don't put it in action. Let's put it in action. I don't like being philosophical to excite people spiritually. Say, oh, mashallah, it was a lovely speech. And then we walk out and say, so what should I do now? I don't know. What should I do? No. Let's read. Allah says, قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ. Look at this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, say to the believing men to lower their eyes. Yesterday I spoke about hijab of women. Today I say about the hijab of men. Us men have not been commanded to cover ourselves because the responsibility, when Allah says, الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ, it is the responsibility of man to be the provider for the woman. He has to go outside into the outside world and work. And he is the hunter usually. It is the woman who is the hunted. So Allah has protected that system. And therefore mankind has been endowed with the ability to go out and work. But Allah says, therefore the hijab, which is the common dress which a woman wears in her complete form, is not obligatory on the man. Though sometimes it does become obligatory depending on how you look. If a woman comes and exposes herself, then cover yourself if she doesn't want to cover herself. You find some great urafa, when they saw a woman completely exposed, they didn't want to taint their visions, they used to look away. Why? You might say this is extremism. No, it's not. It's the means to purification. Not all of us have that capacity. But we certainly, when I say capacity, I mean we have the potential for that capacity. But many a times we have not spent the time and the effort to go towards it. So you find Allah says, say to the believing men, that they cast down their looks and guard their private parts. Don't go exposing your body parts in public. In the Western world, you find in men's gym, everybody takes their clothes off and walks around without clothes. Allah says this is not a good act. It leads to indecency. People say, oh, this is extremism. Extremism, you'll find all types of illicit sexual behavior that gets enhanced as a result of this misbehavior. And it's so pervasive and corrosive that it has reached even the Eastern world, that today I do not call East or West, I just call it West. That we have reached that stage, that we need to practice this. We are being encroached upon daily. Daily our lives are being encroached upon with regards to the sanctity and chastity within the family.